Hello, bedtime thinkers, and welcome to the Bedtime Discoveries. I'm so glad you've joined me tonight. This is a place where curiosity meets calmness, a place where you can drift into peace while learning something gentle and beautiful. Tonight, let's journey into the hidden world inside your own mind. We're going to explore the secret life of neurons. These tiny, delicate cells are the messengers of your brain. They are working quietly every moment, helping you think, feel, move, and dream. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And what time is it there? Please share it gently in the comments below. And if you enjoy these calming explorations, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so that together we can continue discovering the wonders of science in a peaceful, restful way. Imagine closing your eyes and drifting softly into the hidden world inside your own body. Deep within you, beneath the skin, beneath the quiet rhythm of your breath, lives a secret network. A world of delicate messengers working tirelessly without rest, without pause. They are called neurons. Neurons are the tiny, living sparks of your nervous system. Each one is a cell, but not an ordinary cell. They are exquisitely shaped, designed for communication and connection. They are the reason you can feel, touch, taste, remember, dream, and love. If you could look at yourself not in the mirror, but through a magical lens that reveals the invisible, you would see billions upon billions of these tiny beings. There are about 86 billion neurons in the human brain alone, a number so vast that if you tried to count them one by one, it would take you thousands of years. And yet, despite their number, each one matters. Each neuron has a voice, a whisper of electricity, a spark of information, and together, these voices weave the story of you. Think for a moment about the first time you recognized your own name, the first time you felt a hug or laughed at something funny. Those moments exist in you because your neurons carried them from one tiny cell to another across a vast network of invisible bridges. The neuron is like a messenger bird, delicate, fast, and precise. It picks up information from one place and carries it to another, and then without waiting it takes off again, carrying another message and another, never tiring, always faithful. Your entire sense of reality, every word you hear now, every image forming in your imagination, is possible because of neurons. They are the silent storytellers, the threads that weave thought into being. Now, let's step deeper into this hidden world. Close your eyes and picture yourself shrinking smaller and smaller until you are so tiny you can drift into the space between cells. Here, in the quiet ocean of your brain, you see them, neurons glowing gently like constellations in a night sky. Their delicate branches reaching out, touching, connecting, sparking with life. Each time you wiggle your fingers, it is a signal from neurons. Each time you recall a memory, it is neurons whispering to each other. Even now, as you listen to my voice, millions of neurons are at work. Some carry the vibrations of sound from your ears to your brain. Others translate those signals into meaning, into understanding, into calmness. The neuron is not just alive, it is active, constantly sending and receiving, constantly shaping your experience. Scientists sometimes call neurons the basic units of the brain. But this phrase, though accurate, feels too simple because neurons are not just units. They are artists painting your thoughts. They are musicians playing the rhythms of memory. They are poets composing the story of your life. Imagine a moment. You touch something warm, like a cup of tea. Instantly, neurons in your skin fire. sending a signal up to your spinal cord, then onward up to your brain. Other neurons interpret this. Yes, this is warm, safe, soothing, and you smile. That entire experience, that feeling of warmth and comfort, was created by neurons working in harmony, and they never stop. Even while you sleep, they continue their work, sorting memories, replaying dreams, repairing themselves, so that when you wake, you are ready to begin again. It is a quiet dance, unbroken, endless. The secret life of neurons sustaining you without you even noticing. But perhaps the most beautiful truth is that neurons are not just biological machines. They hold mystery. They hold wonder. They are the bridge between the physical and the intangible. Every thought you've ever had, every joy you've ever felt, every sorrow you've carried, lives in the delicate pathways of neurons. Think of falling in love, that rush of excitement, the warmth in your chest. It is chemistry, yes, but also it is neurons firing in beautiful synchrony. Think of hearing a piece of music, one that makes you weep. Your ears pick up sound, but your neurons give it meaning. They turn vibration into emotion, into something that moves the soul. And then think of silence. Even in stillness, your neurons hum quietly. They prepare your body, regulate your heartbeat. They create dreams. They hold you in the safety of life itself. Some people wonder, where's the self? Is it in the body, the mind, the soul? Science cannot fully answer. But what we do know is that neurons are at the heart of it all. They are the living threads that tie your experiences together. They create the story that feels like you. In many ways, you are your neurons, and your neurons are you. They are small, impossibly small, but their work is infinite. So tonight, as you rest and listen, remember this secret world within yourself, a world that never sleeps, a world of quiet sparks, a world of neurons, carrying the story of your life from moment to moment. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a tiny tree, not a grand oak, not a towering pine, but a delicate, living tree hidden deep inside your mind. This tree is the shape of a neuron. At first glance, the neuron looks simply, but as you look closer, you see a design so elegant, so intricate, that even nature itself seems proud of it. At the center is the cell body called the soma. This is the trunk of the tree, the foundation where life begins. Inside the soma lies the nucleus, a tiny library of information, where the neuron's instructions are stored, where decisions about growth, repair, and function are quietly made. Stretching outward from the soma are the dendrites. Imagine countless branches, thin, delicate, and graceful, reaching out like the arms of coral in the ocean, or the twigs of a tree swaying in the breeze. The dendrites are the listeners of the neuron. They are the gentle receivers, always reaching outward, waiting to catch messages from other neurons nearby. And then there is the axon. Unlike the many branches of the dendrites, the axon is one long, slender pathway, a single road that stretches away from the soma, sometimes short, sometimes stretching for extraordinary distances, like a root extending deep into the soil. The axon is the speaker of the neuron. It carries messages outward away from the soma, delivering them to other neurons, to muscles, to glands, to wherever the body needs the signal to go. At the far end of the axon lie the axon terminals, tiny, delicate endings that branch out once more. Each one is like a fingertip, reaching out to touch another neuron, but they don't quite touch. Instead, they leave a microscopic gap called the synapse, a space so small and yet so important. because it is here in this gap that the true magic happens. This is the shape of a neuron. A cell body with dendrites like listening branches, an axon like a messenger's road, and terminals that pass the signal forward. It is simple and yet breathtakingly complex. And the beauty of it all is that this shape is not random. Every curve, every branch, every extension exists for a reason. To listen, to carry, to speak, to connect. A design shaped by millions of years of evolution, perfectly suited to the life of communication. Let's move closer now, as though we are walking through a forest, but instead of tall trees and roots, we find ourselves among neurons, billions of them, each one shaped in a familiar pattern, and yet each one slightly different. The soma, that rounded body at the center, is like a quiet home where the life of the neuron is sustained. Here, energy is created, nutrients are managed, and the instructions for every function are stored in the DNA. It is a tiny, pulsating hub of life. The dendrites look like branches, but they are more like ears. Each one can receive signals from many different neurons. In fact, a single neuron can have thousands of dendrites, each one reaching outward, each one listening. It is as though the neuron is surrounded by countless whispers, and the dendrites are there to catch everyone. The axon, by contrast, is not a listener, but a messenger. It is usually covered by a sheath called myelin. This sheath acts like insulation around a wire, helping the signal travel faster and smoother, so that the message doesn't fade before it reaches its destination. Some axons are tiny, only a fraction of a millimeter long, but others, especially in the spinal cord, can stretch astonishing distances. Imagine a neuron in your spinal cord, sending a signal all the way to your toes. One single cell carrying a message that far. It's almost beyond belief, and yet it happens every moment of your life. At the end of the axon, the terminals wait like fingertips extended in greeting, and across the synapse, the gap between cells, tiny molecules called neurotransmitters leap. They're like sparks flying across a space, completing the connection, ensuring the message is passed on. This architecture is not only beautiful, it is efficient. It allows neurons to form vast networks with billions of points of connection. So many that scientists estimate the human brain has more connections than there are stars in the Milky Way. Each neuron, a tiny star, with its branches reaching out, and together, they form a universe within you. Now let's step back and think of the neuron not just as biology, but as poetry. The dendrites reaching outward are like curiosity itself. They're always seeking, always ready to receive something new. They remind us of our own openness, our own longing to connect, to understand. The axon, steady and determined, is like purpose, a long path that knows its destination and carries the message faithfully. No matter how far, no matter how complex the journey, the axon continues. And the synapse, that tiny gap, is like trust, because the message cannot simply jump on its own. It relies on neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers, to complete the bridge. In the same way, our lives are filled with small gaps, spaces that can only be crossed when we trust, when we reach out, when we allow connection. When you imagine a neuron, you are not only seeing a cell, you are seeing a symbol of life itself. Listening, carrying, connecting, sharing. All the qualities that make us human are echoed in its design. And yet there is something even deeper. Because this shape, simple as it is, has given rise to every thought, every invention, every piece of music or art, every moment of love. in human history. The pyramids of Egypt were built by hands moved by neurons. The paintings of the Renaissance were imagined in networks of neurons. Every lullaby sung to a child, every story told by firelight, every dream whispered into the night, all of it exists because of this tiny, tree-shaped cell. The shape of a neuron is the shape of connection, the shape of memory, the shape of thought. So, when you close your eyes tonight and rest gently into sleep, remember the tiny trees inside your mind, their branches reaching, their pathways glowing softly, each one alive with energy, each one alive with purpose, each one a silent part of you. Close your eyes and imagine standing on a quiet hillside at dusk. All around you, fireflies begin to glow, flickering gently in the fading light. Each one sends out its small signal, and another answers. A silent conversation carried on with light. In many ways, this is how neurons communicate. Not with words, not with sound, but with tiny flashes of electricity and delicate chemical whispers. At the heart of this process lies the action potential. It begins when a neuron decides to send a message. A small electrical impulse is created like a spark born at the base of the soma. This spark travels down the axon, racing forward, until it reaches the very end. But here, the journey meets a gap. The neuron cannot touch its neighbor directly. Between them lies the synapse, the space so small it is almost invisible. And yet it is here, in this space, that the magic unfolds. To bridge the gap, the neuron releases chemicals called neurotransmitters. They flow across the synapse, like messengers carrying lanterns in the dark. They drift gently until they find their place on the next neuron. They unlock the door, allowing the signal to continue its journey. This is the dance of communication. Electrical sparks racing down long pathways. Chemical whispers leaping across gaps. And then once the message is delivered, the process resets, ready to begin again. Every thought you've ever had, every dream, every memory exists because of this endless rhythm. Electrical, then chemical, then electrical again, on and on like a song without end. And it happens not slowly, but with astonishing speed. In the time it takes you to blink, countless messages have raced across your brain, carrying information you don't even notice. A sound, a smell, a memory stirred by the simplest touch. Neurons communicate constantly. When you listen to a melody, your auditory neurons spark to life. When you recall a childhood memory, your hippocampus whispers softly to your cortex. When you smile at something kind, neurons and emotional centers of the brain light up in harmony. This hidden communication is your life unfolding. It is the voice of your inner world, and it never stops. Let us follow a story. Imagine you touch the surface of cool water with your fingertips. In that moment, sensory neurons in your skin awaken. Tiny sparks of electricity begin to travel. They rush up through your arm, into your spinal cord, and onward to your brain. There the message arrives. Cool, gentle water. Instantly, other neurons begin to respond. Some bring up a memory, perhaps of swimming as a child. Some stir emotions, the calmness of being near water. Others prepare your muscles, adjusting your movements if needed. All of this from a single touch. A conversation unfolding too fast for you to notice, but powerful enough to shape how you feel. Or consider hearing your own name spoken in a crowded place. Amidst all the noise, all the chatter, something happens. Your neurons, tuned to recognize that special pattern of sound, light up. They send signals across pathways that say, "This is important. Listen." In an instant, your attention shifts. You turn, you respond. all because neurons communicated with such precision. The communication of neurons is not random. It is beautifully organized like an orchestra. Each group of neurons has a part to play. Some carry sensation, some create thought, some stir emotion, and others guide movement. Together, they create harmony, a living symphony of signals, so perfectly balanced that most of the time you are not even aware of it. And yet, sometimes the communication becomes louder, clearer, more noticeable, like when you feel a rush of joy, or when a sudden pain makes you react instantly. In these moments, the hidden language of neurons becomes visible in your experience. It is a reminder of how alive you are, of how connected every part of you is, from the tips of your fingers to the quietest corners of your memory. Now, step back with me once more and think of neuron communication not just as science, but as poetry. The action potential, the spark that begins it all, is like inspiration. It starts small and visible, but once it begins, it cannot be stopped. It travels forward until it reaches its destination. The neurotransmitters drifting across the synapse are like trust. They carry the message across the space between, and without them, the signal would be lost. It is a reminder that even in life, we depend on small bridges of trust to carry meaning from one soul to another, and the receiving neuron waiting patiently is like a friend, ready to listen, ready to respond, turning a single spark into part of a greater pattern. Communication among neurons is not unlike communication among people. We speak, we listen, we share signals across spaces that cannot be seen, and together we create connection. The beauty of it all is that neurons do this effortlessly, without asking, without pause. They carry the story of your life, every second, every breath. They whisper your dreams as you sleep. They weave your thoughts when you are awake. They hold your memories. They carry your laughter, your tears, your love. So tonight, as you rest, you can imagine the secret conversation inside you. Billions of neurons sending sparks of electricity, passing delicate messages across invisible bridges, creating the music of thought, the poetry of being alive. And perhaps knowing this, you can feel a little softer, a little more at peace, knowing that inside you a vast network of quiet voices is always there, always working, always carrying you forward. Close your eyes and imagine lightning in the night sky, a sudden spark racing across the heavens faster than the eye can follow. This is the closest image we can borrow to understand the speed of thought. When a neuron decides to send a signal, an action potential is born. It is small, only a shift in electrical charge across a membrane. And yet, once it begins, it rushes forward, down the axon, racing like a spark on a wire. For some neurons, the signal moves gently at a walking pace. But for others, especially those wrapped in insulating myelin, the message can travel at astonishing speeds, up to 250 miles per hour, faster than a race car, faster than the blink of an eye. It is this incredible velocity that allows you to live with such seamless grace. When you touch something sharp, your neurons react almost instantly, pulling your hand away. When you see a ball flying toward you, neurons in your eyes, your brain, your muscles, all fire in perfect rhythm, allowing you to move before you even think. This is the speed of thought, not slow, not hesitant, but swift, flowing like electricity across a living network. And yet, within this speed, there is subtlety. Some signals must rush, others take their time. A reflex is lightning fast, but the slow recall of a childhood memory, or the gentle process of savoring a poem, unfolds at a quieter pace. The beauty of neurons is that they know which to choose. They are not only fast, but wise in their timing. And so, the speed of thought is not just about quickness, it is about balance. The harmony of urgency and patience woven into the fabric of your mind. Let's follow a few simple stories to feel the speed of thought more clearly. Imagine you accidentally place your hand on a hot surface. Before you even have time to realize what's happening, your hand pulls away. How? This is because certain pathways in your body bypass thought itself. The message travels through sensory neurons in your skin into the spinal cord, and from there, motor neurons fire instantly, commanding your muscles to act. It happens so quickly that awareness comes afterward. You think, that was hot, but by then, your body has already moved. This lightning-fast reaction is called a reflex. It is thought at its fastest, protecting you without hesitation. Now imagine another story. You smell something, fresh-baked bread. The scent drifts through your nose, activating sensory neurons, carrying signals into your brain. Their networks awaken. Memories of childhood kitchens, images of family gatherings, the warmth of comfort and belonging. This process is slower, unfolding like a soft ripple. And yet, the same principle is at work. Signals racing across axons, jumping synapses, awakening pathways that hold your past. So, whether it's fast like a reflex, or slow and layered like memory, the speed of thought carries you through life, from the instant protection of survival to the quiet unfolding of nostalgia. Even now, as you listen to these words, your neurons are working at many speeds. Some fire instantly, bringing the sound of my voice from your ears to your brain. Others fire more slowly, weaving the meaning together, allowing calmness to settle into you. This is the hidden rhythm of thought. Fast and slow, urgent and patient, working together in quiet perfection. Now let's step back and see the poetry in this speed. The thought that pulls your hand away from danger is a flash of lightning. It is survival, swift and unhesitating. The thought that recalls an old friend's smile is a gentle river. It moves slowly, winding through memories, carrying warmth into your heart. And the thought that creates a dream, that drifts silently through your sleeping mind, is like mist, not fast, not slow, but floating, timeless, moving without urgency, beyond measure. So when we ask, what is the speed of thought? The answer is not one number, not one pace. It is many speeds working together, a symphony of velocities, each one chosen for its purpose. This harmony is why life feels natural, why you can react without thinking yet also linger on a memory. It is why you can solve a puzzle quickly or savor songs slowly. The neurons choose the tempo, and together, they create the music of your mind. Some scientists have tried to measure it exactly. 250 miles per hour for the fastest signals, a few feet per second for the slowest. But perhaps numbers are only part of the story, because thought is not just electricity. It is feeling. It is awareness. It is the spark of life itself. And in that sense, the speed of thought is not measured in miles or seconds, but in moments. The moment you knew you were loved, the moment you felt wonder at the stars, the moment you dreamed of something greater. Each one carried by neurons, each one alive because of the speed of thought. So tonight, as you rest, you can imagine these sparks within you, some racing like lightning, some drifting like mist, each one carrying part of your story, each one moving at the perfect pace. Close your eyes and imagine standing beneath a starry sky. Above you, countless points of light shimmer, scattered across the heavens. Each star seems distant, isolated. And yet, when you step back, you notice something magical. They form patterns, constellations, a web of meaning drawn from endless dots of light. This is what neural networks are like. Your brain does not live through one neuron alone. Each neuron is important, yes, but the true power lies in connection. One neuron speaks to another, and then another, until patterns of communication emerge. These patterns are what we call neural networks. A single neuron is like a word, but a network of neurons is a story, and billions of neurons together are the story of you. Every time you learn something new, every time you recall a memory, every time you feel an emotion, it is not one neuron alone. It is a vast chorus of neurons firing in harmony, lighting up in patterns that weave together thought. Scientists sometimes compare neural networks to highways. Each neuron is like a city, and the axons are roads carrying traffic between them. Some roads are small, quiet lanes. Others are wide, fast motorways. Together, they form a map of communication, a living city of thought. But unlike a city, this network is alive. It changes every moment. Connections grow stronger or fade, depending on how often they are used. New pathways can be formed. Old ones can be rewired. The network is never fixed. It is always in motion. This is the web within you, not made of stars, not made of cities, but of neurons, billions of them, dancing together to create the wonder of mind. Let's explore a few gentle examples of how neural networks shape your everyday life. Imagine learning to play a musical instrument. At first, the notes feel clumsy, your fingers uncertain. But with each practice, your neurons fire together. Slowly a pattern forms. Connections strengthen, until one day your fingers move with ease. The music flows. It is not just practice, it is networks being built. Your brain has woven a new web, a network for music. Or think of language. When you learn new words as a child, neurons in your auditory cortex listen. Others in your memory centers hold the meanings, and others still in motor regions guide your tongue and lips to shape the sounds. Together, they form a network, not one neuron knowing the word, but many working in harmony. This is why language feels natural. It is not a single thought, but a pattern of countless tiny sparks. Even emotions flow through networks. When you feel joy, neurons and reward circuits light up. When you feel fear, networks in the amygdala respond. But rarely do they act alone. Each emotion involves layers of networks. Thought, memory, sensation, all intertwined. That is why emotions can feel so deep, so complex. And consider habits. When you repeat something often, like brushing your teeth or tying your shoes, the network becomes strong, so strong, that the action feels automatic. The neurons have carved a pathway, and your mind follows it without effort. These stories remind us that who we are is shaped by networks, by countless connections formed over time. It is why each person is unique, because each brain, each network, is shaped by a lifetime of experience. Now, let's see the beauty in this. Neural networks are not random. They are patterns, living patterns. They are like rivers flowing through the landscape of your mind. Some rivers are strong, rushing with power. Others are small streams, winding gently through hidden places. Together, they form the geography of thought. They are also like constellations. Each neuron is a star, but when they fire together, they form a shape, a meaning, a memory, a thought. The night sky of your brain is alive with constellations of connection, and perhaps most beautifully, networks change. They grow when you learn. They fade when you forget. They adapt when life changes. They are never frozen, never fixed. They mirror the truth of life itself, that we are always changing, always becoming. The wonder of neural networks is that they hold the story of you, every memory, every skill, every dream, each one woven from sparks of electricity across countless tiny bridges. So tonight, as you rest, you can imagine these networks glowing gently within you, like constellations in the sky, like rivers across the land, like cities lit with quiet lights. Each connection, a thread of who you are, each spark, a whisper of your life, and all together, they form the vast and beautiful web that makes you, you. Imagine planting a seed in the soil. At first, it is small, fragile, hidden beneath the earth. But with time and care, it begins to grow. Roots reach down, leaves stretch upward, until one day it becomes a tree. Learning is much like this. Every time you learn something new, a seed is planted in your brain. The neurons are stirred. Connections begin to form. At first, the pattern is delicate like a tiny sprout. But with repetition, with attention, the pattern grows stronger until it becomes part of you. Scientists once thought the brain was fixed, that once childhood passed, learning slowed and the brain stayed the same. But now we know the truth. The brain is alive with possibility. Neurons are always ready to form new connections. At any age, at any time. When you remember a phone number, when you recognize a familiar face, when you tie your shoes without thinking, it is learning, it is memory, it is the quiet work of neurons, whispering to each other across the delicate bridges of synapses. Think of a child learning to walk. The first steps are shaky, uncertain, but each fall, each rise, each step strengthens the network. The neurons repeat the pattern again and again until walking becomes effortless. The brain has learned. Learning is not just about school or books. It is everywhere. Every new word, every new song. Every time you try a recipe or take a new road home, your brain is learning. Every experience is a seed, and every seed can grow. This is the wonder of learning, the gentle planting of countless seeds that together make the forest of your mind. Now let us turn to memory. For what good is learning if it cannot be remembered? Memory is the keeper of our stories. It is a journal written not on paper, but on living cells. Every memory you hold, from childhood laughter to yesterday's breakfast, is carried within the neurons of your brain. But memory is not a single place. It is a network, different regions of the brain, each playing a role. The hippocampus, a curved structure deep in the brain, is like a librarian. It takes new experiences and carefully files them away. If the memory is short-term, it may fade quickly, but if repeated or meaningful, the hippocampus helps it settle, becoming long-term, becoming part of you. The amygdala colors memory with emotion. A frightening moment may etch itself sharply, because the amygdala signals danger. A joyful moment may glow warmly, because the amygdala whispers happiness. The cortex holds long-term storage, layers upon layers of neurons, holding facts, faces, skills, like a vast library filled with endless books. Each book is not written in ink, but in pathways of neurons. Memory is also delicate. Sometimes it fades. Sometimes it shifts. Sometimes it changes with retelling. It is not a perfect photograph. It is more like a painting retouched each time you recall it. This is why two people can share the same event and yet remember it differently. But this fragility has beauty too, because memory is not just storage. It is creativity. It allows you to reimagine, to reshape, to weave past and present into something new. Think of learning to ride a bicycle. The first wobbly rides, the scraped knees, the sudden triumph. At first, the hippocampus holds it, but with practice, the memory moves to motor networks. Until one day, you no longer think of balance or pedaling. It is simply there. The memory has become skill. This is the architecture of memory. A living system, always storing, always recalling, always shaping the story of who you are. Learning and memory are partners. One plants a seed, the other tends a garden. Together, they weave the fabric of your mind. Think of the times you have studied for an exam. You read, you repeat, you test yourself. Each repetition strengthens the network. This is learning. And when the day comes, you recall the knowledge. This is memory. Two processes endlessly entwined. But not all memories are the same. Some are fleeting like the sound of a passing bird. Some are strong like the face of a loved one. Some are skillful like playing a piano. Each type has its own network, its own rhythm. Even sleep plays a role. When you drift into slumber, your brain does not rest. It replays the day. Neurons fire in patterns, rehearsing what you have learned, like a teacher reviewing the lesson. This is why sleep strengthens memory. Why dreams sometimes echo the things you studied or felt. There are stories, too, of people who could memorize entire books, of children who could hear a song once and play it back perfectly. Their neural networks were extraordinary. But even the ordinary brain holds wonders, because every brain learns, every brain remembers, and sometimes forgetting is part of the dance. The brain lets go of what is unneeded to make space for the new, like pruning a tree so that it may grow stronger. So tonight, as you listen, think of your own learning, the countless things you know, the countless memories you carry. Each one a seed, a leaf, a branch. Together they form the living forest of your mind, a forest that is still growing, still changing, still alive with possibility. Close your eyes for a moment and picture a river. The water flows, carving the land, shaping its path, sometimes bending, sometimes splitting, sometimes forming new channels altogether. This river is your brain, always flowing, always changing. And the name for this ability is neuroplasticity. For many years, scientists believed the brain was fixed, like a solid stone, unchanging once adulthood began. But now we know the brain is not stone. It is water. It can reshape itself, adapt, even in the later years of life. Every thought you have, every skill you practice, every memory you form, leaves a trace. Neurons reach out, form connections, or strengthen old ones. And when those pathways are used again and again, they grow stronger, faster, easier. Imagine walking through a grassy field. At first, the grass is tall and the way is unclear. But if you walk the same path each day, a trail appears, the grass bends, the soil hardens, and soon a clear road is formed. This is how your brain learns. The more you practice, the clearer the path. This is neuroplasticity. Children's brains are especially plastic. A child can learn languages quickly or pick up new skills with ease. But adults, too, carry this gift. A person who suffers a stroke can sometimes relearn to walk or speak because the brain rewires. A different path is carved. A new channel of the river is made. Think of musicians. Their constant practice strengthens the motor regions of the brain. Think of taxi drivers in busy cities. Their hippocampus, the map of memory, grows larger with use. Each new street remembered, each new route traveled, reshapes the brain. The brain is alive with change. It is never still. It is always becoming. Now let us go deeper. For neuroplasticity is not random. It is sculpted by experience. Every moment of your life, every choice, every habit leaves its mark. If you practice kindness, your brain builds pathways of empathy. If you practice worry, your brain builds pathways of fear. The brain does not judge. It simply shapes itself around what you repeat. This is why habits are powerful, why change can feel difficult, because the old pathways are strong, like deep roads carved into the earth. But new pathways can always be made, step by step, repetition by repetition. The brain reshapes. Imagine clay in the hands of a sculptor, soft, moldable. At first, the clay takes one shape, but with gentle pressure, with time, it transforms. This is your brain. Experience is the sculptor. Neuroplasticity is the clay. There are stories of resilience, of children raised in silence who later learn to speak, of adults blinded by accident who grow stronger senses of hearing and touch. The brain responds to need. When one channel is blocked, another grows wider. Even meditation changes the brain. When people practice calm breathing or focus their attention gently, the networks of attention and the regions of compassion grow stronger. It is as if stillness itself sculpts new pathways. And so, with every sunrise, your brain is being shaped, not only by what you do, but by what you do again and again. Neuroplasticity is not only science, it is also hope. It tells us that no matter your past, no matter your struggles, your brain can grow, it can adapt, it can learn. An old proverb says, "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now." And the same is true for the brain. Every new skill, every new thought, every gentle practice is a seed, and the brain will reshape around it. Think of language. An adult may struggle more than a child, but with practice, new pathways form, and suddenly a new tongue becomes familiar. Think of healing. Someone who loses movement may, through therapy, carve new channels in the brain. A finger moves again. A word returns to the lips. The brain adapts. The river finds a new path. And think of yourself, even as you listen now, your brain is reshaping. The act of learning about neuroplasticity is itself neuroplasticity. So, tonight, let your thoughts drift to this truth, that your brain is not fixed. It is alive. It is flowing. It is endlessly changing, like a river carving valley, like clay beneath gentle hands, like a forest growing new paths. Your brain is becoming, always becoming. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the quiet landscape of your brain at rest. Millions upon millions of neurons sit patiently, like an orchestra waiting for the conductor's cue. And then something happens. A memory, a word, a glance from a friend, and suddenly a wave of electrical and chemical activity spreads across the brain. This wave is not just thought, it is feeling. It is emotion. But where does it begin and how does it all unfold? At the center of our emotional lives lies a set of structures deep inside the brain, known as the limbic system. The word limbic comes from the Latin limbus, meaning border. And indeed, it sits like a borderland, a gateway between our thinking brain, the neocortex, and our older, instinctive brain, the brainstem. The limbic system is home to several important players, each with its own role in shaping how we feel. The amygdala, for example, is a tiny almond-shaped cluster of neurons. Despite its small size, it has an enormous impact. The amygdala helps us detect threats. It sparks fear when danger is near, and it colors our experiences with emotional tones. Imagine walking in a forest at night, hearing a rustle behind you. Before your conscious mind has time to decide whether it is a harmless squirrel or something more dangerous, your amygdala has already fired, flooding your body with signals that prepare you to act. Then there is the hippocampus, shaped like a seahorse. It works hand in hand with the amygdala. While the amygdala stamps events with emotional significance, the hippocampus helps us form and retrieve the memories of those events. Together, they ensure that we not only feel emotions, but also remember them and learn from them. A joyful celebration, a painful heartbreak, a tender hug. These experiences live in us because neurons in the hippocampus and amygdala have woven them into the fabric of memory. And surrounding these is the prefrontal cortex, the thoughtful, reflective part of the brain. It acts like a wise guide, calming the fires of the amygdala when fear becomes overwhelming, or encouraging compassion and patience when anger threatens to take hold. You might think of the prefrontal cortex as the gentle conductor, guiding the orchestra of emotions toward balance and harmony. Neurons are the messengers that make this possible. When you feel happiness, sadness, fear, or love, what you are really experiencing is a symphony of electrical impulses and chemical signals traveling between millions of neurons. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, norepinephrine. Each neurotransmitter plays a unique note in the melody of emotion. When dopamine surges in reward pathways, you feel pleasure. When oxytocin floods your system, you feel connected, bonded, perhaps even in love. When norepinephrine rises, your body feels alert, maybe anxious. And when serotonin levels are steady, a sense of calm and contentment settles over you. But what is most remarkable, perhaps, is that emotions are not locked inside the brain alone. They flow outward into the body. Your heart races, your stomach clenches, your skin warms, your eyes water. Neurons send their messages down into the body through the autonomic nervous system, making emotions physical, palpable, and alive. In this way, neurons do not simply create emotions. They weave them into the very fabric of our lived experience, binding thought, memory, body, and spirit into one seamless whole. So, as you drift deeper into relaxation, remember this. Every flicker of feeling you have ever known, every smile, every tear, every heartbeat of joy or sorrow has been carried on the whispering currents of neurons. Let us wander now, slowly, into the lived stories of emotions. Imagine a child hearing the gentle voice of their mother. The sound waves travel into the ear, transformed into neural signals that reach the auditory cortex. Almost instantly, the amygdala lights up, recognizing the voice as safe and familiar. A gentle flood of oxytocin begins to circulate, carried from neuron to neuron, wrapping the child in warmth and comfort. This is love, written in neural signals. Or consider the nervous student, about to give a speech before a large crowd. As the moment approaches, neurons in the amygdala detect the potential for a social threat. They call upon the hypothalamus, which in turn triggers the release of stress hormones. The heart beats faster, The palms grow sweaty, the stomach twists. The neurons are not cruel. They are simply preparing the body for action. The student's fear is not just in the mind. It is written into every cell of the body, a full-body performance directed by neurons. Now imagine the bittersweet memory of a long-lost friend. A song plays on the radio, and suddenly neurons in the hippocampus recall the sound of their laughter. The amygdala colors a memory with a hue of longing and sadness. Tears well in the eyes, triggered by motor neurons that control tiny muscles. Here, emotion is both past and present at once, the neural echo that bridges time. Science, too, has revealed fascinating details about how neurons give rise to specific feelings. For instance, researchers have found that mirror neurons, discovered in the 1990s, may play a role in empathy. These neurons fire not only when you perform an action yourself, but also when you see another person perform it. When you see someone cry, your mirror neurons may quietly activate as though you, too, were crying. In this way, the brain allows us to feel with others, to share in their joy and their pain. Another story emerges from studies of the insula, a region tucked deep within the brain. Neurons here seem to monitor the body's internal state. They let you feel the flutter of your heartbeat, the clench of your stomach, the dryness of your throat. And because emotions are deeply tied to these bodily sensations, the insula plays a vital role in giving them depth and texture. Consider the wonder of laughter. When something tickles your sense of humor, networks of neurons in the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and brainstem burst into action. Muscles twitch, the chest heaves, air rushes out in joyful bursts. And soon, laughter spreads, because hearing another person laugh activates your own mirror neurons, making laughter contagious. In this way, neurons bind people together in shared waves of joy. Or think of music, one of humanity's greatest emotional treasures. When a melody plays, neurons in the auditory cortex decode the notes, while dopamine neurons in the reward system flood the brain with pleasure. The amygdala and hippocampus weave the music into memory, giving it emotional meaning. That is why a song from childhood can move us to tears decades later. Neurons remember and neurons feel. Through each of these stories, we see a simple truth. Emotions are not abstract. They are lived, embodied, and carried on the activity of countless neurons working together. As we rest deeper into this journey, let us reflect on the delicate balance that neurons create between thought and emotion. For while neurons can stir the fires of passion, they can also soothe them, guiding us toward peace. The prefrontal cortex, as mentioned before, plays a vital role here. It is like a wise elder, calming the excitability of the amygdala when fear runs too high, or encouraging patience when anger begins to burn. Through this balance, neurons allow us not only to feel emotions, but also to reflect on them, to shape them, and sometimes to transform them. This balance is not always perfect. In conditions such as anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress, neurons may misfire, sending signals that amplify fear or dampen joy. But here, too, we find hope, for the brain is plastic. Neurons can change, grow new connections, and strengthen pathways of resilience. With time, therapy, mindfulness, or even the simple act of sharing feelings with a friend, new neural patterns can form. And these patterns can bring healing. One of the most beautiful discoveries in neuroscience is that practicing compassion, gratitude, or kindness can actually reshape the brain. Each time we focus on positive emotions, neurons fire in ways that strengthen those networks. Over time, just as a path becomes easier to walk when many footsteps have passed, the pathways of kindness grow stronger, making it easier for us to feel and express them again. Even in silence, neurons are at work, weaving emotions into dreams. During sleep, The amygdala remains active, replaying emotional experiences of the day. In this way, the brain helps us process feelings, making sense of joy, sorrow, and everything in between. As you lie here, listening softly, let yourself feel gratitude for these tiny cells. Neurons, invisible to the eye, shape the most intimate parts of our humanity. They're the reason we laugh with friends, cry at losses, fall in love, or feel peace under a starlit sky. The secret life of neurons is, in truth, the secret life of our hearts. Without them, we could not feel. Without them, we could not love. And so, as we close this gentle part of our journey, let us breathe slowly and simply rest in the knowledge that every emotion, joy, sorrow, anger, hope, is with a delicate whisper of neurons, carrying the music of life through the vast cathedral of the mind. When the world outside begins to quiet down and the sun slips below the horizon, something extraordinary unfolds within you. Your neurons, those tiny yet powerful messengers of the brain, begin a nightly journey, a kind of symphony that plays only when sleep arrives. Sleep is often thought of as stillness, a pause, or even an escape from activity. Yet within the brain, the opposite is true. During sleep, your neurons are alive with patterns, waves, and bursts of communication. They hum together in a rhythm that is both delicate and powerful, guiding the body through the many stages of rest. In the first stage of sleep, neurons begin to slow their signals, coaxing your body into relaxation. Heart rate softens, breathing steadies, and the chatter of conscious thought begins to fade. Neurons in the thalamus, a central hub of the brain, dim the flow of sensory information. This is why the sounds of the room, the feeling of the sheets, and even the whisper of the air becomes less important. Your neurons are gently closing the gates, creating a cocoon of calm. As you slip deeper, waves of neuronal activity ripple through the cortex, the outer layer of the brain. These waves are slower, more deliberate, almost like the long, rolling swells of the ocean at night. Scientists call these slow waves delta waves, and they are thought to be crucial for rest and repair. In this state, your neurons synchronize, firing together in slow, sweeping patterns, then pausing, as though taking measured breaths. Why would neurons need this rhythm? One answer lies in the work of the brain's housekeeping system, the glymphatic system. As you sleep, your neurons create space, shrinking just slightly so that cerebrospinal fluid can wash through the brain, clearing away waste. It is as if the neurons take turns, resting and resetting, while a gentle tide cleanses their environment. Without this nightly process, toxins could build up, leaving you foggy and weary. But sleep is not a single steady state. It is a journey, one that cycles through stages again and again, like a repeating song. Each cycle lasts about 90 minutes. Within it, neurons guide you through light sleep, deep sleep, and finally into a stage where dreams are born. This dream stage, REM sleep, is where neurons fire rapidly as though awake, weaving together fragments of memory, imagination, and emotion. In this way, neurons during sleep are both protectors and storytellers. They safeguard your body's health, while also creating the world you wander through at night. And though you may not remember every dream, your neurons remember the work they've done. They have shifted, cleansed, and restored, preparing you for another day of wakeful life. So, while your body lies still in bed, your neurons are performing their nightly symphony, a hidden concert, keeping you alive, balanced, and quietly renewed. Sleep is not simply about recharging. It is also about weaving together the fabric of memory, learning, and identity. Your neurons are the architects of this process, carefully sculpting your mind while you rest. Imagine for a moment that each memory you form during the day is like a stone. Some are light and smooth, a smile from a friend, the taste of a meal, the sound of laughter. Others are heavy and rough, stress, worries, or difficult tasks. When you fall asleep, your neurons begin to sort through these stones. Some are polished and placed carefully into the foundation of long-term memory. Others are set aside, perhaps forgotten, because they are no longer needed. During deep, slow-wave sleep, neurons in the hippocampus, the brain's memory hub, replay the day's experiences. Like a quiet rehearsal, patterns of activity are repeated, as though the neurons are whispering the stories of your day to the cortex, asking it to hold them for safekeeping. This is how a fleeting moment becomes part of who you are. Without this nightly work, memories will remain fragile and scattered. That is why, after a night of poor sleep, it is harder to recall what you learned or to focus clearly. Your neurons simply have not had the time to perform their nightly choreography. But neurons do more than preserve memory during sleep. They also prune connections. Throughout the day, as you experience the world, neurons form countless synapses, tiny bridges of communication. Not all of them are necessary. During sleep, neurons quietly trim away the weaker ones, keeping only the strongest. It is like tending a garden, removing the excess so that the important connections can grow stronger. This pruning is essential for learning. Children, whose brains are overflowing with new information, spend more time in deep sleep for exactly this reason. Their neurons are working tirelessly, strengthening pathway for language movement and discovery. Adults, too, rely on this process, though in subtler ways. Every night, neurons shape and refine the very architecture of thought. And yet, memory and learning are only part of the story. Sleep also allows neurons to regulate emotion. If the day has been stressful, neurons in the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, can become overactive. But after a night of good sleep, their activity is soothed, balanced by the prefrontal cortex, which regains its calm authority. This is why the world often feels less overwhelming after rest. Sleep does not erase challenges, but it gives neurons a chance to reorganize your inner world so that you can meet the day with steadier ground. So, you see, neurons are more than just electrical sparks. In sleep, they are builders, gardeners, and healers. They protect memories, strengthen lessons, and soothe emotions, all while you drift in the quiet rhythm of the night. Among the many wonders of sleep, perhaps the most enchanting is the creation of dreams. Here, neurons weave tapestries of memory, imagination, and feeling, pulling threads from your daily life and spinning them into stories that exist only in the private theater of your mind. During REM sleep, neurons fire with surprising intensity. The brain, in many ways, resembles its waking state. The difference is that sensory neurons, the ones that carry information from the outside world, are quiet. Instead, the stage is given to internal networks, which light up with fragments of thought and memory. Neurons in the visual cortex create vivid images, while those in the limbic system stir emotions. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and order, becomes less active. This is why dreams can defy the rules of reality, blending the impossible with the familiar. Why do neurons create dreams? Scientists still do not know for certain. Some suggest that dreams help to process emotions, a kind of nightly therapy session guided by neurons. Others believe that dreams are a rehearsal for life, allowing you to practice responses to challenges, fears, or desires. And some suggest that dreams are simply the natural result of neurons firing freely, creating stories from the sparks of memory. Whatever the purpose, dreams reveal the creative side of neurons. They remind us that the brain is not only a machine of survival, but also a painter, a storyteller, and a poet. Beyond dreams, there is another mystery. Why does sleep feel so restorative, so essential to consciousness itself? The answer may lie in the way neurons synchronize. When large groups of neurons fire in harmony, producing slow waves or rapid bursts, they create a rhythm that resonates through the body. This rhythm may be the very foundation of consciousness, a kind of inner pulse that allows the mind to weave experience into meaning. And so, every night, when you surrender to sleep, you are joining an ancient cycle, one shared by all living beings with neurons. From the tiniest insect to most complex human mind, neurons depend on rest. Sleep is not just a pause, but a stage on which neurons perform their most delicate and profound work. As you drift deeper, your neurons continue their quiet labor. They cleanse, they build, they balance, and they dream. And in the morning, when light filters through your eyelids, you awaken renewed, carrying with you the hidden gifts of their nightly devotion. Sleep, then, is the great partner of neurons, the secret half of their life, the quiet stage where they keep you whole, healthy, and wonderfully human. Imagine you are sitting quietly by a window, watching raindrops fall. Outside, the world is alive with motion, with sound, with texture, but within you, something else is happening. You are aware of the rain, aware of the feeling it gives you, aware that you are the one perceiving it. That awareness itself is consciousness. Consciousness is not just the information your senses collect. It is the inner movie playing in your mind, a film where you are both the audience and the storyteller. Your neurons gather light from your eyes, vibrations from your ears, and signals from your skin. But something within weaves those signals into a tapestry of experience. For centuries, philosophers have asked, what is consciousness? Is it the soul? Is it a spark beyond the physical body? Or is it something that naturally emerges from the immense complexity of neurons working together? Neuroscience has tried to map this mystery. Some suggest consciousness is created when different regions of the brain synchronize, binding sensations into a single moment of awareness. Others think it arises from the brain's ability to model not only the world around us, but also the self within. Take a gentle breath here, and imagine your mind as a quiet lake. On the surface, ripples dance when thoughts, feelings, or memories pass through. But beneath the water, in its depth, lies stillness. Consciousness is both the surface ripples and the deep stillness, the experience of all that is happening and the silent awareness that notices it. In dreams, we glimpse a different shade of consciousness. In deep sleep, it recedes into quiet darkness, and in waking life, it glows brightly with detail. Yet in all these states, the flame of awareness continues to flicker, shifting in intensity but never fully going out. Consciousness is what allows you to say, I am. It is what lets you recognize your reflection, recall your past, imagine your future. And it is what makes you pause, even now, to wonder at its very existence. Think of your brain as a great orchestra. Millions of neurons, each like a musician, each playing its tiny note. A single neuron fires, like the sound of a violin string. Another responds, like the low hum of a cello. Alone, these sounds are simple, but together, when coordinated in harmony, they become a symphony. Consciousness, many scientists believe, may be just like this symphony. It is not the work of one part of the brain alone, but of many regions playing together. Visual areas translate light into shapes and colors. Auditory regions turn vibrations into sound. Memory regions recall old experiences. Emotional centers add feelings and tones. And somewhere in this grand performance, all the pieces are woven into the seamless, continuous melody of awareness. Some theories suggest that consciousness arises when the brain integrates information into a unified whole. If the brain is like a vast web, Then consciousness is a shimmering pattern created across the whole network when signals pass through it. Other researchers speak of a global workspace in the brain. Imagine a theater stage lit by a bright spotlight. Many things may be happening backstage, processes of vision, memory, bodily functions, but only what stands in the spotlight becomes part of conscious experience. Right now, as you hear these words, my voice is standing in your spotlight, while countless other sensations, like the beating of your heart, the movement of your stomach, the tiny adjustments of your muscles, remain in the quiet backstage. And yet, even when certain experiences are not in the spotlight, they still shape your awareness indirectly. The stage changes constantly, moment by moment, and with it your stream of consciousness flows on, like a river that never truly stops. There are experiments that reveal just how delicate and mysterious this process is. For example, sometimes the brain receives conflicting information from the eyes, such as two different images shown to each eye. Instead of showing you both at once, your consciousness flickers between them one image then the other, as though awareness itself cannot hold two separate pictures at the same time. This reminds us that consciousness has limits. Just as a flame can only illuminate a small circle in the dark, but within those limits lies an extraordinary richness, the ability to reflect, to imagine, to dream, to create. Now, imagine drifting into a moment of deep thought. When you remember your childhood, your brain replays patterns of old neurons firing together. And when you imagine the future, your brain strings together new patterns, almost like sketches of things that have not yet happened. This ability to project ourselves backward in memory and forward in imagination is one of the wonders of consciousness. It allows us not only to exist in the present, but to wander across time itself. Sometimes this wandering is gentle, like daydreaming as clouds drift across the sky. And sometimes it is powerful, like moments of insight, when a new idea suddenly shines in the spotlight, as though from nowhere, but always beneath all the details. Consciousness feels like you, the self that observes, the quiet presence that remains when everything else is shifted. As we reach the end of our exploration, let us pause and look at the mystery of consciousness, not only as a scientific puzzle, but as a deeply human experience. Close your eyes for a moment. Behind those eyelids, countless neurons are still at work. They hum with electricity, sending sparks through the networks of your mind. And yet, what you feel is not sparks, not cells, not chemical signals. What you feel is simply that quiet presence, that gentle awareness. That is what we call consciousness. Scientists can trace signals, measure brain waves, even map which regions activate when we see or hear or remember. And yet, the experience itself, the redness of a rose, the sweetness of a memory, the feeling of love, the weight of sadness, remains beyond their instruments. It is something private, something no one else can ever see in the way you do. This is why consciousness is often called the hard problem of science, because while we can explain how neurons work, we still do not fully understand why their activity produces experience. Why does a collection of cells firing together feel like the warmth of sunlight, or the sound of music, or the comfort of a voice in the night? Perhaps the mystery itself is part of the wonder. Imagine standing by the ocean at dusk. The waves stretch endlessly, their rhythm calming, eternal. You cannot see every grain of sand on the shore, and yet you know the beach exists, vast and complete. Consciousness is like this too. You may not see its every mechanism, but you sense its vastness. You live inside its unfolding tides every moment of your life. Some philosophers say that consciousness is not just in us, but is the very stage upon which all experience unfolds. Without it, there would be no colors, no sounds, no world as we know it. Everything we hold dear, our memories, our dreams, our feelings, lives only because of this fragile flame of awareness. And so, as you listen to these words, let yourself marvel not at distant galaxies or deep oceans, but at the miracle happening right now within you. A miracle so ordinary that it feels invisible, and yet so profound that it shapes your entire life. Consciousness is the canvas upon which every thought is painted, the stage where every memory plays the river that carries every dream. And as night surrounds you, as your breath slows, your consciousness itself begins to shift from the sharp clarity of waking thought into the soft and mysterious realm of sleep. Here, neurons still dance, weaving patterns that become dreams, gentle echoes of your waking mind, transformed into stories of the night. In this way, consciousness never truly disappears. It only changes form. It is with you in wakefulness, in dreaming, and even in the deep silence of rest. Always present, always flowing, like an endless stream. So tonight, as you rest, allow yourself to feel gratitude for this quiet miracle, for the neurons that work silently, tirelessly, for the mind that holds your memories, your hopes, your joys, and for the consciousness that makes you you. May you drift peacefully into that gentle stream now, carried softly by the secret life of neurons, into dreams of light and calm. Good night, dear listener. Sleep well and sleep deeply. And until we meet again, good night and goodbye.